Hello and welcome to Northwestern Ontario Voices Dryden. I'm your host, Jack Dawson. Right now, we bring you coverage of the Dryden City Council meeting from Monday, August 14th, 2023. From discussions on workplace rights and advocacy to significant community progress, this meeting addresses critical matters affecting the city's future. Thanks for watching Northwestern Ontario Voices.
Well, good evening, everyone. Now I'll call the open council meeting of Monday, August 14th, 2023 to order, and request that everyone turn their cell phones off for the duration of the meeting. I will remind everyone to turn their microphones off when they aren't speaking. I'd like to acknowledge that Councillor McKinnon is on Teams tonight. I would like to call for declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act with respect to the agenda for this meeting. Hearing none, I would also like to call for declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for meetings at which a member was not in attendance and which had not previously been declared. Okay, hearing none, I'd also then like to begin by acknowledging, with respect, we are in Treaty 3 territory. The land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Métis people. Well, we're now at the delegations, and we do have one delegation this evening. So I understand Mrs. Fellows is on Teams. There you are. Welcome to our council meeting. Please address the council members. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Harrison and Council. My name is Amanda Fellows, and I'm here representing the Women of Ontario Say No, a collaborative of men, women, people organizations, and groups that care deeply about basic human rights in the workplace. In this case, upholding the right not to be harassed by an elected member of council. Many of you know that Bill 5 was voted down on May 31st, 2023. Given this, we are now calling on government to introduce its own legislation with many of the same provisions to ensure that municipally elected representatives are held to the same standard of how we treat each other as any working Ontarian. This is a non-partisan advocacy effort. If Bill 5 had passed, it may have affected who was able to run in the most recent election. There are so many good people that serve the people as elected representatives. However, like every sector, there are people who are guilty of perpetuating harassment in the workplace. One does not have to look far to find examples, such as in my own hometown of Barrie, or in Ottawa, Mississauga, and Brampton, as to why this legislation is so necessary. In fact, the number of examples has only increased. In every other workplace in Ontario, employees are held to violence and harassment in the workplace policies. Currently, there is no legislation that provides an appropriate mechanism for accountability for municipally elected representatives when it comes to perpetuating harassment. In any other job, if egregious acts of harassment are substantiated, the person is terminated. In the present, not only can an elected representative perpetuate harassment, no matter how egregious, they can retain their position and re-seek re-election. Apologies. This is not acceptable. The ask is simple. Let's make things better. Let's introduce legislation that will ensure the basic human right to go to work and not be harassed is respected. Let's increase public trust in publicly funded elected positions. The last recommendation is based on the same consequence applied to candidates who fail to file a financial statement for their election campaign. It's hard to be here and to try and rationalize how a lack of financial disclosure warrants penalty, while councillors guilty of egregious harassment can pursue re-election carte blanche. Something is wrong with this picture. Today, we're here to advocate for your support for your workplace safety. As elected leaders of your community, you are responsible for ensuring basic human rights are respected and protected. A government bill to address this glaring and harmful gap is not only necessary, but the only way forward. You cannot obtain diversity of voice at the decision-making table when at a baseline level, the workplace is unsafe. We are asking Council to pass a motion to endorse the AMO recommendations and to write a letter of support circulated to your local MPP, Premier Doug Ford, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Associate Minister of Women's Social and Economic Opportunity. I'm happy to report that should Council choose to pass this motion, they will be joining the ranks of 182 other municipalities that support legislation on this. Barrie, Springwater, Wasaga Beach, Ottawa, Woodstock, Mississauga, Kenora, just to name a few. with deputations planned to every municipality in this province. Every voice matters, and we look to you as elected leaders of your communities to do just that, to lead. Please join these municipalities in standing up for the human rights of every person in this province. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to open up any questions to our councillors. Any comments, questions?
I have some.
Councillor Knoll?
Thank you for that. I heard you say that council can, if found in violation, can run again. I took the time before your delegation tonight to print off our policy and principles upon which this code of conduct is issued. And that's the municipal council code of conduct 5.6. Says a council member may become disqualified and lose his or her seat by operation of law, including being convicted of an offense under the criminal code or being found to comply with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, whether or not the conduct in question involves a contravention of this code of conduct. In addition, policy on the harassment in the workplace is 22 pages long. It references the Human Rights Code. So I think what you're asking us to do is reinvent the wheel. And given what the city of Dryden already has on the books, I don't think we need to go any further than what it says here, because it already says one can lose their seats. Our policy does contain 22 pages. It's an exhaustive and inclusive list on the harassment policy. And I used to work for the Ontario Federation of Labor. Even theirs wasn't that in depth. So I'm not sure where you're coming from thinking the city of Dryden needs to amend ours or join with other municipalities. That's their business. I think ours is well covered. Subject to any questions, those are my submissions.
Thank you. Ms. Fellows, would you like to respond to that question or comment?
Sure. Without having read your full policy, what my understanding is, and forgive me, I'm a part of this grassroots organization that's, providing these deputations across the province. But my understanding is that there is no due process to have an integrity commissioner come in and investigate these incidents or accusations of harassment, in which case a counselor wouldn't necessarily be able to be removed from office unless somebody went the route of pressing charges, for example, or if there were legal ramifications to that, which is oftentimes a very challenging circumstance for many of the people who are victims of these circumstances.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Knoll.
I'm afraid you're not accurate with that, because the integrity commissioner absolutely can be contacted and this can be brought to their attention. That's absolutely a fact. So you're not correct in that. And are you telling me you came here tonight with this delegation before and you've never read what our policy already is? Is that correct?
I hadn't read your policy. No, I hadn't read your policy specifically.
I'm just going to respond. Yeah, I know that integrity commissioner, they are allowed to reprimand or do a suspension of rumination for 90 days. And that councillor mayor or could be removed for criminal code or for conflict of interest guidelines. But yeah, I'm a bit unclear. Like you mentioned, egregious code of contact, whether or not the integrity commissioner could actually call for removal, because the AMO conference has suggested that they revise the municipal code of contacts to allow for the council to go to a judge if recommended by integrity commissioner for egregious role. So I think there's probably something to investigate further to see where our where our policy lies in regards to that. Anyways, Councillor Keating?
Yeah, just to respond. So, Councillor Knoll, this isn't anything to do with Dryden specifically and our policies. This is specifically to the municipal codes of conduct, and as I understand it, given to us by the province that say you have to do these things and have them in your municipal codes of conduct. If we go above and beyond that as a municipality, that is great and wonderful. And we have in many ways. So this is just to inform that there are other municipalities who have experienced different, or people in those municipalities who've experienced different forms of harassment and violence perpetuated by their city councilors. And there is no due process for them to be held accountable for that. So there's nothing really in place right now saying, because this is an awful thing to have to experience, the penalty right now is 3 months without pay, I believe. And Ms. Fellows, you can correct me if I'm mistaken on that. So this is just to support AMO's, kind of lead taking on this to be provincially, all municipalities should have something in here that protects its workers. So hopefully that makes a bit more sense.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keating. Any more comments or questions for delegation? All right, thank you very much. Well, Councillor Keating and I will be attending AMO next week, so I'm sure this will be a topic that will be front and center in some of the discussions. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no presentations this evening. We have no public notices, and we have no reports from council this evening. We're now at consent agenda part 1, general. I'd like to ask the clerk to conduct this section of the agenda, please.
Okay, thank you. We'll review the items that are in consent agenda part 1, and when I'm finished, I'll ask if there are any of these items that members of council would like to speak to or sever for a separate vote. Under adopt and receive minutes, we have the minutes of the July 24th council meeting to be adopted. And we also have the minutes of the KDSB meeting that was held June 15th to be received. Under motions arising from previous meetings, we have a motion that directs staff to work with the city's working circle to organize a leadership summit with the leadership of neighboring Indigenous communities. Does any member of council wish to speak to or have any of these items severed for a separate vote? You can speak to it.
I would just like to highlight the board minutes from the Kenora District Services Board. During that meeting, we accepted Minister of Education Stephen Leacy's announcement of 1,004 new childcare spaces in our district over the next 4 years. This is very exciting for our area. 1,004 new childcare spaces really provide a lot of need for parents to have their young ones looked after. And so this will be a real challenge for KDSB to create that many spaces in 4 years, but we're certainly up for the challenge and much needed and very beneficial. So very thankful for the Minister of Education for this announcement, and now the hard work begins of making it happen. Thank you.
Anybody else okay with everything? So I'd be looking for somebody to move and second. I see Councillor Price and a seconder. You moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Noel. The council hereby consider the following items of the consent agenda part 1, general, under date of August 14, 2023, as read and adopted. 9A, B, and 10A.
All those in favor? Right, carried. Thank you. Well, we're now at consent agenda part 2, bylaws, and I would like to ask the clerk to conduct this section of the agenda, please.
Okay, again, I'll just review the items that are in consent agenda part 2 bylaws. And when I'm done, I'll see if there's any members of council would like to speak to or sever any of these items for a separate vote. We just have 2 bylaws this evening. Bylaw 2023-43, which is a bylaw to amend the city's fees and charges bylaw for this year by deleting and replacing Schedule Q, the cemetery price list, to account for the new columbarium, which will be delivered in the next several weeks. And bylaw 2023-44 is a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan development agreement for the land located at 319 Grand Trunk Avenue. And staff reports on both of these matters were presented at the July 24th council meeting. Are there any of these items that members of council would like to speak to or sever for a separate vote? Seeing none, I will look for someone to move and second this motion as well. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Keating, that council consider consent agenda part 2 bylaws under date of August 14th, 2023, which includes the following bylaws as read a first, second, and third time. Bylaw 2023-43 and bylaw 2023-44.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now back to the regular agenda, which is out of consent, and each item on the regular agenda will be presented individually to council. We have one staff report, and I'll invite Mr. Lansdale Rowe to present his staff report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everybody. My staff report this evening relates to an amendment to the 2023 budget. The recommendation is that council approves an amendment to the 2023 budget, and the recommended revision relates to an addition to the 2023 capital plan being an Aaron Park gator replacement. The expense would be fully covered by Aaron Park reserve funds, so there would be no impact to the 2023 operating budget or a requirement for additional funds out of operations. Pretty straightforward staff report, but if there's any questions, I'll take them right now.
Questions from Councillor? Councillor Price?
Thank you for your report, Stephen. Just a simple question, actually. How old was the gator?
It was right around 30 years old. And our mechanics have been stretching the life of that piece of equipment as best as they can, but there's no life left in it.
So we definitely got our money's worth.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lansdowne Rowe. I was going through this, and down at the bottom on the Schedule B in the capital plan, something caught my eye on Van Horn Claybanks project, water, sewer, and road. And can you elaborate on that? Because that certainly was something that piqued my interest.
Yep, sure. This would be extending the water and sewer infrastructure down to Claybanks Road. That's a very high level estimate. It's, I think, a dated estimate, but we're currently working on a more updated estimate as we speak.
So, Steve, because it's in orange, is that significant of something, or?
It just means that it's not part of our 2023 capital plan. It's below the line, but it's an item that we need to be of mind because it is something that is a priority.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, no worries.
Councillor Tardif?
Through the chair, Stephen, will this be going through a regular tender process for the gator? Or are they just going outright purchasing? They found one.
Yeah, so our procurement policy for this level of spend requires 3 quotations, and our community services manager and our Aaron Park supervisor have received 3 quotations, and our capital plan amendment relates to the lowest quote that we've received.
Mr. Nesbitt?
Through your worship, just late breaking news, we may have a fourth quote, so we'll take care of that as an operational matter.
Okay, thank you for that update. Any further questions? Okay, thank you for your staff report. Moving on, we have no notice of motions this evening, and we have no motions this evening. So we'll move to our reports from municipal offers. I'll call on Mr. Nesbitt.
Thank you. Through your worship, no comments for tonight. Thanks.
And then we'll move to Mr. Lansdale-Roll.
Yeah, nothing additionally for me either. We're just like at the beginning stages of our 2024 budget development. So that's the focus.
Thank you. And then I'll call on our city clerk.
I'll say a couple things. We've been very busy in the administration office issuing marriage licenses and booking several marriage ceremonies. As well, we've been scheduling a lot of interments at Dryden Cemetery. As mentioned by Steve, work is underway on the 24 budget, and we've submitted our cemetery and administration fees and charges. And the next step is to begin working on our operating and capital budgets, which we will be doing starting Wednesday in my office.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to announcements. Just want to congratulate Dryden Fiber Canada on the purchase of our local pulp mill. Nice to see a company like that taking interest and wanting to invest into our community. As we all know, our pulp mill is a long-standing economic driver for our community, so we appreciate their entrance in our community. We're looking forward to meeting leadership and their involvement in our community. Secondly, I just want to offer my condolences to the citizens of Lahaina, Hawaii, who experienced a very tragic wildfire that entered their community and did a significant amount of damage. And worse off, there was a lot of loss of life. Just reminds us how quick fire can move across the landscape, especially when you have a lot of high winds. And you know, we're probably in a similar situation. We have a lot of forest around us, and we experience a lot more high winds than we used to. So just a reminder for us to be very diligent in our emergency management. Our communications have to be very swift when something arises like this. So just a reminder of the importance of being diligent and having good communication systems and good firefighting. So again, my condolences to the families in Lahaina, Hawaii. I'll call on Mr. Councillor McKinnon, if you have any comments you'd like to make.
I have nothing tonight, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'll start with Councillor Tardif.
Nothing for me.
Thank you, Councillor Price.
I have nothing to add tonight.
Councillor Noel.
Just a few things I wanted to mention, the good work the OPP have been doing and a few major initiatives they've had locally here. I also wanted to congratulate the Dairy Queen, my colleagues here who attended and assisted and wanted to come for Miracle Treat Day. Specifically the Dryden Fire Department, who spent the entire day there walking up and down the street and trying to bring people in. It's a great thing to watch. I think that's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councillor Latham.
I have nothing, Your Worship.
You and Councillor Keaveney.
I just have one thing to add to the Dryden Fiber thing. I did see that there was a breakfast happening. I believe it's next Wednesday morning, August 30th. And I was like, ooh, exciting. So maybe see some of you there. There's lots of exciting things happening all over social media. And congrats to Dryden Fire Service for those adorable animal oxygen masks that they were promoting on their socials. And that's really exciting that we have the opportunity to have something so innovative in our own little community. And that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you very much. All at the confirmatory bylaw. I'll ask the clerk to ask for someone to move in second, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Noel, seconded by Councillor Tardif, that bylaw 2023-45 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be read a first, second, and third time.
Those in favor? Carried. And now, adjournment.
I look for a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Councillor Noel, seconder, Councillor Price, or Councillor Keating, thank you. Moved by Councillor Noel, seconded by Councillor Keating, that this meeting be declared adjourned.
All those in favor? Carried. We stand adjourned. Please turn your mics off. Thank you very much.
Night all.